Hello, friend. I'm Hope, and I'm really glad you're here today. Welcome to English with Hope, a calm space for your mind and your heart. In this channel, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to rush. Here, we learn English slowly. We listen to English gently. No pressure, no stress. And here, you are not alone. Wherever you are in the world, I'm right here with you. So relax your shoulders, take a slow breath, and let's begin. There's something I've been thinking about lately, and I want to share it with you because I think you might recognize it too. When we're in the middle of a really pressured season of life, not a crisis, just that sustained, relentless kind of busy that doesn't really end. We tend to keep moving. We adjust. We adapt. We quietly reorganize ourselves around the demands of everything that's coming at us, and we're good at it. We really are. But somewhere in all that adjusting, we lose track of something. Not dramatically, not in a moment we can point to, just gradually. The way light changes in a room, without you noticing, until suddenly it's dim. And you look up one day and think, when did this get so heavy? I think you know exactly what I mean. You've been under a lot of pressure lately, haven't you? Maybe it's work. Maybe it's the pace of everything, how fast the world moves, how much it expects, how little it pauses. Maybe it's the pressure you put on yourself, which honestly is sometimes the heaviest kind, the kind that doesn't come from a manager or a deadline or another person, the kind that comes from inside, from wanting so much for yourself, from caring so deeply about where you're going, from being someone who tries. And trying is exhausting, really, genuinely exhausting. Not in a way that feels heroic, just in a quiet, accumulated way that lives in the body, in the shoulders, in the small sighs between tasks that you don't even notice you're making anymore. We don't talk about that part enough, I think. We talk about big breakthroughs, big challenges, big moments of transformation, but we don't talk about the ordinary weight of just keeping going, staying in it, choosing again and again to show up for a life that is asking a lot of you right now. I see that. I really do. And here's what I want us to sit with together today. Not rush past, not fix, just genuinely sit with. What if the pressure you are feeling right now is not evidence that something is wrong with you? What if it's evidence of something else entirely? I'm not going to tell you that pressure is a gift. I don't think that's true, or at least, it doesn't feel true when you're inside it. And I never want to say something to you that sounds true, but doesn't feel true. That's not what this space is for. But I do want to ask you to stay with me today, to walk through this together, because I think there is something inside the pressure, something underneath it, something it has been quietly doing to you that you might not have seen yet, not because you weren't paying attention, but because when you are inside something, it is almost impossible to see the shape of it. We're going to look at the shape of it today, together, gently. And by the time we're done, I hope you see yourself a little differently than you did when you first pressed play. Not stronger necessarily, not more motivated, just more honest, more gentle with yourself, a little more trusting of the road you've been walking, even when it's been hard, especially when it's been hard. You don't have to figure anything out right now. Just stay with me. I want to tell you about Emma, 24 years old, the youngest on her team, and she feels that every single day, not because anyone says it, but because she carries it herself. That quiet background awareness of being newer, less experienced, still proving something that no one actually asked her to prove. She works hard, really hard. The kind of hard that doesn't make noise. No complaints, no requests for recognition, just showing up and doing more than what's asked, and then going home and wondering if it was enough. She has been running on that question for months now. Is it enough? Am I enough? And the honest answer, most days, is that she doesn't know. She just keeps going, because stopping feels worse than the exhaustion. The pressure has been building quietly. She doesn't talk about it. She adjusts around it. She tells herself, everyone feels this way. This is just what work is. Just keep going. And she does. She keeps going. Until one afternoon, something small happens. She's packing up after a long team meeting, the kind that ran over and solved less than it promised. Most people have already left the room. Her manager is gathering her notes nearby. Emma is just trying to remember where she left her pen. And her manager looks up and says, almost casually, the way people say things they actually mean, precisely because they're not making a speech about it. You know, the way you handled the client feedback last week, I have been doing this a long time, and not everyone figures that out in their first year. You should give yourself more credit. And then she goes back to her notes, just like that. The moment is over in seconds. But Emma stands there for a beat longer than necessary. Not because the words were extraordinary, but because something in them landed in a place she hadn't realized was waiting to be reached, a place that had been quietly asking, through all the early mornings and the self-doubt and the exhausted keep going, does any of this actually mean something? Am I actually becoming someone? She doesn't cry. She doesn't say much. Just a quiet thank you, a small smile, and she walks out. But something is different now. Not loudly different, just settled in a way it wasn't before. All that pressure, all those months of trying, without knowing if the trying was working, it had been doing something she couldn't see from the inside. It had been building her into someone that even an experienced eye could notice, someone worth pausing for, someone worth telling. She just needed someone else to hold up the mirror. And friend, maybe you need that too, right now. Maybe you are in the middle of your own version of Emma's story, running on the question of whether it's enough, carrying more than you let anyone see, wondering if the pressure is building anything at all or just wearing you down. I want to be that voice for you today, the way Emma's manager was for her. What you are doing matters. What you are carrying is real. And the fact that you cannot yet see what it is building in you does not mean nothing is being built. It is, quietly, steadily, in the exact pressure you are standing in right now. Why does pressure feel like something is wrong with you instead of something happening to you? Can I ask you something honestly? When you're under real pressure, not a crisis, just that sustained, relentless kind that doesn't let up, what do you tell yourself about it? Not the version you tell other people, the private version, the one running quietly in the background. For most of us, it sounds something like, something must be wrong with me. Everyone else seems to be handling this. Why is it so hard for me? And I want to pause there, because something important is hiding inside that thought. We almost never think, this is a hard situation and it is affecting me. We almost always jump straight to, I am not strong enough for this. The difficulty becomes a verdict about us, about our capacity, about some fundamental lack that the pressure has apparently exposed. And once that verdict is quietly in place, everything gets heavier than it actually is. The work, the relationships, the simple act of getting through the day, all of it starts to feel like proof of something you'd rather not prove. But here's what I want us to hold together right from the beginning. You are not failing. You are under pressure. Those are two completely different things. And somewhere along the way, for so many of us, they got tangled together in a way that was never fair and never true. Let's start the untangling there. Why does the hardest season of your life also feel like the loneliest? Here is something that doesn't get talked about enough. Pressure doesn't just exhaust you, it quietly shrinks your world. And then, and this is the part that really stings, it makes you feel ashamed of how small that world has become. Think about what sustained pressure actually does, not the big visible things, the small quiet disappearances. The hobby you haven't touched in months, not because you decided to stop, but because there's simply nothing left at the end of the day. The friends you keep meaning to call back. The messages sitting unread, not because you don't care, but because forming a proper response feels like one more thing on a list that never gets shorter. The version of yourself that used to be curious, playful, present, now somewhere far behind you, in a season that feels like a different life. And you tell yourself, when things slow down, I'll get back to those things. I'll get back to myself. But things don't slow down. And the distance between who you are right now and who you feel like you're supposed to be just keeps quietly growing. That's one kind of loneliness, feeling estranged from yourself. But there's another kind, and I think this one is harder to name. It's the loneliness of being surrounded by people who care about you and still feeling completely unseen because the people closest to you can see that you're busy, that you're tired, but they cannot feel the specific weight you're carrying. And so the conversations stay on the surface. The check-ins feel well-meaning but slightly beside the point, and you give shorter answers, not because you don't want to connect, but because explaining the full truth of how you're doing would take more energy than you have. So you say, I'm okay, just a lot going on. And they nod, and the distance stays. I want you to know I see that gap between your outside and your inside right now, between how functional you appear and how quietly depleted you actually feel. That gap is real. It makes sense. And it is not weakness. It is the honest human cost of carrying something heavy for a long time without it being fully seen. What is the pressure actually doing to you underneath what you can see? So let's go a little deeper together. I want to say this simply, because I think the simple version is the truest one. Pressure arrives at the exact edge of who you currently are. Not randomly, it arrives precisely where you are being asked to grow, at the boundary between the person you have been and the person that what's coming is going to require you to become. Think about that for a moment. The pressure you're under right now, the pace, the expectations, the weight of it, it's not landing on the easy parts of you. It's landing on the edges, the places where your current capacity meets something larger than it has held before, where the old ways of coping, the old version of who you are, is being quietly asked to expand. An expansion hurts. That is not a metaphor. It's just true. Moving into a larger version of yourself is uncomfortable because you don't have the muscle memory for it yet. You don't have the confidence of having done it before. You're just inside the discomfort of becoming something you can't fully see yet. And from the inside, I want you to hear this clearly. That feeling is almost indistinguishable from failing. The feeling of being stretched past your limits feels almost exactly like the feeling of not being enough. They live in the same body. They produce the same tiredness. They whisper in very similar voices. But they are not the same thing. One is the feeling of breaking. The other is the feeling of becoming. And the only way to tell the difference is to ask, what is this pressure pointing toward? What is it asking of you? What old belief, old habit, old version of yourself? Is it making too small to hide inside anymore? Because that is what pressure does underneath everything. It makes the old version of you uninhabitable. It pushes you out of the familiar self and into something larger, something more honest, something that can actually hold the life that is trying to come through you. I know you can't see that from inside it, but I want you to hold the possibility that the discomfort has a direction, that it is not random, that it is not punishment. It is an invitation issued in the hardest possible language, but an invitation nonetheless. Why does part of you resist getting through it, even when you want to? And yet, even knowing all of that, something in us still resists. Have you noticed that? Even when you want to move through the pressure, even when you can see that it might be building something, there's a part of you that grips, that quietly refuses to let go, even when letting go is exactly what's needed. I used to think that resistance was weakness, that it meant I wasn't trying hard enough, wasn't brave enough, wasn't ready, but I don't think that anymore. I think that resistance is grief. And I want to stay with that word for a moment, because I think we use it too narrowly. We reserve it for death, for the big visible endings. But grief is much wider than that. David Kessler, who has spent his life writing about loss, talks about how we grieve any ending that mattered to us, any version of ourselves we have to leave behind in order to move forward. And that is exactly what pressure asks of you. Not to lose a person, but to lose a self, the familiar version, the one who knew the rules of the life you were living before the pressure arrived, the one who had quiet certainties about who they were and what they were capable of. Pressure ends that version of you gradually without asking permission, and the mind, which finds enormous comfort in the predictability of who you have always been, holds on, not out of weakness, but out of something genuinely tender, the simple human difficulty of saying goodbye to a version of yourself that kept you safe for a long time. That is what the resistance is. It is mourning. And mourning is not the opposite of growing. It has always been part of it. Every significant becoming in a human life is accompanied by a loss, the loss of who you were before you became who you are now. So if you've been feeling a strange grief lately, a sadness you can't quite explain, a longing for something you can't quite name, please be gentle with yourself. You are not going backwards. You are not failing to be strong enough. You are letting go of who you were so that you can become who the pressure has been quietly building. What if the version of you that survived the pressure is someone you haven't fully recognized yet? I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly, not in the way that sounds good, but in the way that's actually true. Think of something you can handle now that you genuinely could not have managed 2 years ago. not something dramatic, something small and real. A conversation you can have without falling apart, a boundary you can hold without apologizing for it 7 times, a difficult moment you can sit inside without immediately running from it. Can you find one? I think you can. And I think if you look honestly, without rushing past what you find, you'll see evidence of someone who has quietly changed, not loudly, not in a way that made headlines even in your own life, just differently, more grounded somewhere, more honest about something, more capable of something that once felt impossible. That is what the pressure built. Not the version of you that performs strength for other people, but the version that actually has it. That carries a kind of internal knowledge now, earned, not inherited, about what you can survive, what you can carry, what you are actually made of. Remember Emma's manager, the way she saw something in Emma that Emma couldn't yet see in herself? She looked at the person. All those months of pressure had been quietly building, and she named her, recognized her, told her she was already there. Maybe no one has done that for you yet, in the way you needed. Maybe you are still inside the pressure, still in the not yet, still waiting for the moment of recognition. But I want you to hold this, gently, without pressure. The person being built by everything you are going through is already here, not fully formed, still being shaped, but real. And the fact that you cannot see them clearly yet doesn't mean they aren't there. It just means you are still inside the becoming. And becoming, real becoming, is never something you can watch happening to yourself. It only becomes visible when you look back, when you turn around one day and see how far the road has come behind you. You will turn around, and when you do, I think you will be quietly amazed. What changes when you stop being afraid of the next hard thing? I don't want to end this with something loud. I don't want to tell you that you're unstoppable or that the best is yet to come. Those things might be true, but they're not what I want to leave you with right now. What I want to leave you with is something quieter, something more honest. You have already been through hard things, real ones, things that stretched you past what felt possible, things you weren't sure you would get through, and yet here you are, on the other side of them, carrying the quiet knowledge of someone who has already survived their own pressure. And that changes your relationship to the next hard thing. Not because it will be painless. It won't be. Not because you'll feel fearless going into it. You probably won't. But because underneath the fear, there will be something that wasn't there before. A quiet familiarity with difficulty. A small, steady voice that says, I have been here before. Not exactly here, but somewhere like here, and I found my way through. That voice doesn't announce itself, but it grows, quietly, steadily, every single time you choose to keep going, when keeping going costs something real. Think about fired clay for a moment. Raw clay is soft, easily shaped, easily damaged, but when you place it inside extreme heat, it doesn't melt. It hardens. It becomes something that can hold weight, hold water, hold life, something that could not have existed without the fire. You are not the same person who first felt this pressure. Something in you has hardened, not coldly, but in the way that makes you more capable of holding what comes next, more honest about your limits, more trusting of your own endurance. And that, quietly, genuinely, without needing to be dramatic about it, is enough. It is more than enough. So we've walked a long way together today. And before we close, I don't want to summarize everything or wrap it up too neatly. I just want to let it settle, the way you let something warm settle before you put it down. We talked about pressure honestly, what it costs, the quiet ways it shrinks your world, creates distance, and makes you feel estranged from yourself. We sat with that together, and then we turned, gently, without forcing it, toward something else, toward the quiet evidence. That pressure has never just been taking from you. It has been building something at the same time, slowly, in the background, in the spaces between the exhaustion and the keeping going. You might not feel that yet, and that is okay. Understanding something and feeling it are two different timelines. But before this episode ends, I want to ask you to do two small things, not challenges, not exercises, just two quiet, honest things you can carry into the rest of your day. The first one is this. Sometime today, find 1 minute, and in that minute, think of one thing you handled recently that you would not have handled as well a year ago. One conversation, one decision, one moment where you held yourself together, or held your ground, or stayed inside something difficult. And you did it in a way the earlier version of you would have found harder. It doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to be real. And then let it count. Don't brush past it. Don't minimize it with, anyone would have done that. Just let yourself say, quietly and honestly, I did that. It cost me something, and I did it anyway. That is not arrogance. That is honest self-witnessing, and it is one of the most important things a person under pressure can practice. The second thing is even smaller. At some point today, between one task and the next, or while making a drink, or just stepping outside for a moment, take one slow, genuine breath, not a performative wellness breath, just one real breath, where you actually arrive in your own body for a second. And say this to yourself, quietly, like something you mean. I am in the middle of becoming something. I don't have to have arrived yet. That's it. One breath, one honest sentence. It sounds almost too small to matter, but I remember reading something from James Clear once about how the tiniest actions don't just produce results. They cast a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. And I think that's true, in a way that goes far beyond habits. Every moment you choose gentleness over harshness with yourself is a vote for the version of you that trusts what they're building. You are allowed to be okay inside the pressure, not because the pressure isn't real, but because you are real too, and you are more than the struggle you are currently inside. So take the breath, count the one thing, and keep going, not because you have to, but because you are someone who does. That is who the pressure has been quietly making you into all along. Thank you for being here today, truly. Thank you for staying with me all the way through the hard parts, through the quiet parts, through the moments that maybe asked something of you emotionally. That takes something, and I don't take it lightly. This little space, English with Hope, exists because of you, because you choose to show up here, because you bring your real self into this conversation, even when your real self is tired, even when your real self is uncertain, even when your real self is still in the middle of something it hasn't figured out yet. That is exactly the person this space was made for. So thank you. From somewhere genuinely warm in me, thank you. And until next time, be gentle with yourself, be patient with the process, and trust, just a little more than feels comfortable, that the pressure has never been working against you. It has always been working on you. And if this episode gave you something useful, I'd love it if you tapped like and subscribed to the channel. It helps you stay connected, and it also helps this little learning community grow. Every click really does make a difference. Goodbye for now, friend.